In this video, I'm going to be reading from the review of the FBI's handling of intelligence information related to the September 11th attacks, written by the Office of the Inspector General, which was publicly released in June of 2006. It is from Chapter 5, Two September 11 Hijackers, Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. I will be putting the link in the bottom of the description. I'll be reading from Chapter 5, Part 3 of the report, in which they specify the chronology of Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi and the backgrounds of the two men who were involved with the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. There are 8 data points to read from. In this section of the report, it will discuss in detail the 8 junctures before September 11, 2001, during which the FBI had an opportunity to obtain or develop information about al-Mihdhar and al-Hazmi, but did not. And the report also describes in chronological order the sequence of events regarding these 8 opportunities, including the information that the FBI obtained or could have obtained about both men. Many of the witnesses told the Office of Inspector General, or the OIG, that they did not have specific recollection of the events and conversations relating to Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Mihdhar on the matter. And in addition, the report found few notes and documents relating to the events and conversations. The following is the best reconstruction of the events based on the participants' recollections and the existing documentary evidence. And I will read you the data points of the report in Chapter 5, Part 3. And this is coming straight from the report. In addition, the CIA learned in March of 2000 that Nawaf al-Hazmi had boarded a United Airlines flight in Bangkok, Thailand, bound for Los Angeles, California on January 15th of 2000. We also reviewed whether the FBI was informed of this information and concluded that it did not learn about this information until August of 2001. And that's basically because the CIA intentionally withheld this information from the FBI, and that's according to FBI whistleblower Mark Rossini and Doug Miller, who read the cable concerning about the two men entering the United States with a U.S. visa. The CIA was supposed to put both men on a terrorist watch list and did not, even though the information about both men in which the CIA had, that they were concerned about them being in a terrorist group, in which they were, the CIA knew both men were involved with al-Qaeda, and still both men were not put on the watch list. Data point 1, background. In late 1999, the intelligence community developed significant intelligence information regarding Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Mihdhar. At the time, the intelligence community was on high alert because of concerns involving possible terrorist activity planned in conjunction with the coming of the new millennium. In addition to concerns about attacks at New Year's Eve celebrations, the intelligence community was concerned that a terrorist attack was planned for January 3rd of 2000, which in the Islamic calendar is considered a night of destiny. There were additional concerns about potential terrorist attacks colluding with the end of Ramadan around January 6th, 2000. Several of these planned attacks were uncovered in December of 1999 by Jordanian intelligence. For example, on December 1st, 1999 in Jordan, a plot to disrupt New Year's activities with explosives designed to kill thousands of revelers, including U.S. citizens, was uncovered and thwarted with the arrest of 16 people. On December 14th, 1999, Ahmed Rassam was stopped at the United States-Canadian border in Washington state as he attempted to enter the United States in a vehicle loaded with explosives. It was determined later that he intended to detonate the explosives at Los Angeles International Airport. To be prepared for possible terrorist activity at the end of 1999, the FBI activated its Strategic Information Operations Center, or the SIOC. The SIOC is located in a secure area within FBI headquarters and contains several meeting rooms, conferencing equipment, communications equipment, computers, and other operational equipment. It allows the FBI to manage major investigations or other significant operations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. During the Millennium period, the FBI operated its International Terrorism Operations Section from within the SIOC. In addition, the FBI detailed field supervisors with counterterrorism experience and other counterterrorism personnel to the SIOC for around-the-clock monitoring and response to possible terrorist activities. At the CIA, additional personnel were called in to work at the CTC, the Counterterrorism Center, and planned leave was canceled. In addition, personnel from the CIA and other intelligence community agencies were detailed to work in the FBI's SIOC, just like the FBI was tasked to the CIA's virtual station, the Bin Laden Issue Station, codenamed Malik Station. During this period, personnel in the FBI's SIOC prepared 2 daily briefings for the FBI director and his executive staff, one at 7:30 a.m. and the other at 4:30 p.m. The daily briefings contained summaries of significant terrorism investigations and the latest intelligence related to counterterrorism. Accompanying the briefings were daily threat updates prepared each afternoon for the director and his executive staff. The briefings and the threat updates were prepared by various people throughout the course of the day and night in the SIOC. Data point 2. NSA provides intelligence regarding planned travel by al-Qaeda operatives to Malaysia. In the midst of the Millennium period, concerns in late 1999, the NSA analyzed communications associated with a suspected terrorist facility in the Middle East linked to al-Qaeda activities directly against U.S. interests. The communications indicated that several members of an operational cadre were planning to travel to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in early January 2000. Analysis of the communications revealed that persons named Nawaf, Khalid, and Salim were involved. In early 2000, the NSA analyzed what appeared to be related communications concerning Khalid. The NSA's reporting about these communications was sent, among other places, to FBI headquarters, the FBI's Washington and New York field offices, the CIA's Counterterrorism Center. At the FBI, the information appeared in the daily threat update to the director on January 4th of 2000. Data point number 3. Khalid al-Mihdhar's travel and discovery of his U.S. visa. A CIA desk officer working in the Bin Laden unit, who we call Michelle, this is Michelle and Casey, determined that there were links between these people and al-Qaeda, as well as the 1998 East Africa embassy bombings. In addition, the CIA identified Khalid as Khalid al-Mihdhar. Khalid al-Mihdhar arrived in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia on January 5th of 2000. Mihdhar was traveling on a Saudi passport. This passport contained a valid U.S. visa. Mihdhar's passport was photocopied and sent to CIA headquarters. Several CIA cables contemporaneously discussed Mihdhar's travel and the discovery of the U.S. visa in his Saudi passport. CIA records show that a CIA employee, who we call James, and who was detailed to FBI headquarters during the Millennium period, accessed one of these cables approximately 2 hours after it was disseminated in the morning, and he accessed another of the cables about 8 hours after it was disseminated on the next morning. James discussed some information about Khalid al-Mihdhar with 2 FBI headquarters employees on the evening of January 5th, which they detail in section 7 of the report below. Data point number 4. Central Intelligence Report is drafted to pass Khalid al-Mihdhar's visa information to the FBI. Dwight the special agent detailed to the CIA's bin Laden unit from the FBI's Washington field office, also read the cables discussing Khalid al-Mihdhar's U.S. visa within hours of each cable being disseminated. CIA records also show that Dwight's immediate supervisor in the bin Laden unit opened one of the cables soon after Dwight. Dwight opened one of the cables, which reported that Mihdhar's visa application had been verified and that he had listed New York as the intended destination. Around 9:30 a.m. on the same morning, Dwight began drafting in the CIA's computer system and a Central Intelligence report addressed to the Osama bin Laden unit chief at FBI headquarters and a special agent in the UBL unit at FBI headquarters, who we call Bob. Dwight's CIR, Central Intelligence Report, also addressed to the FBI's New York field office. The CIR first described the NSA information that had been received about Khalid al-Mihdhar, including the planned travel to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in early January. The CIR also discussed the potential links between the suspected terrorist facility in the Middle East and the 1998 East Africa embassy bombings. The CIR stated that photographs of Khalid al-Mihdhar had been obtained and would be sent to the FBI under separate cover. The CIR detailed Mihdhar's passport and visa information, including that Mihdhar had listed on his visa application his intended destination as New York and that he planned to stay 3 months. Dwight also wrote that the Counterterrorism Center was requesting feedback on any intelligence uncovered in the FBI's investigation resulting from the information in the CIR. Michelle Ann Casey, the bin Laden unit desk officer, who originally had taken notice of the information about Khalid al-Mihdhar and his connections to al-Qaeda, accessed Dwight's CIR draft less than an hour after Dwight drafted it at approximately 9:30 a.m. Around 4 p.m. on the same day, Michelle Ann Casey added a note to the CIR in the CIA's computer system, quote, "Please hold off on CIR for now per the CIA's deputy chief of bin Laden unit." Dwight is Doug Miller. The CIA deputy chief of the bin Laden unit is Tom Wilshire. CIA records show that the same morning, the CIA deputy chief of bin Laden unit, Tom Wilshire, also had read the cable indicating that Mihdhar's visa was valid and that the New York had been listed as his intended destination. Around 6:30 p.m. on the same day, John again accessed this cable and then another cable, the same two CIA cables about Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Mihdhar in the CIA's computer system that Doug Miller had used in drafting the CIR. CIA records do not indicate that John accessed Dwight's draft CIR. CIA records show that the CIA employee detailed to the FBI headquarters, who we call James, and who discussed the al-Mihdhar information with two FBI headquarters employees, also accessed the draft CIR on the day it was drafted. In addition, two other FBI detailees accessed the draft CIR. Eric, the other deputy chief of Balak Station, accessed it 2 hours after Dwight began writing it, and Malcolm, the New York field office detailee to the bin Laden unit, accessed it 2 days later. Malcolm would be Mark Rossini. CIA records show that as of 8 days later, the CIR had not been disseminated to the FBI. In an email to John in mid-January, Dwight had attached the draft CIR and wrote, "Is this a no-go or should I remake it in some other way?" The CIA was unable to locate any response to this email. By mid-February, the CIR had not been sent to the FBI and was still in draft form in the CIA's computer system. CIA records show that Dwight emailed a CIA contractor who handled computer matters and asked him to delete several draft cables in the computer system unrelated to this matter, but to save the draft CIR concerning Mihdhar. The contractor accessed the draft cable in the system the next day. When we interviewed all of the individuals involved with the CIR, they asserted that they recalled nothing about it. Dwight told the Office of the Inspector General, or the OIG, that he did not recall being aware of the information about Mihdhar and did not recall drafting the CIR and did not recall whether he drafted the CIR on his own initiative or at the direction of his supervisor, and did not recall any discussions about the reasons for delaying completion and dissemination of the CIR. Malcolm said he did not recall reviewing any of the cable traffic or any information regarding Hazmi and al-Mihdhar. Eric told the Office of Inspector General that he did not recall the CIR. The CIA employees also stated that they did not recall the CIR. Although James, the CIA employee detailed to FBI headquarters, declined to be interviewed by us, he told the CIA OIG that he did not recall the CIR. James would be Clark Shannon. John, the deputy chief of the bin Laden unit, and Michelle, the desk officer who was following this issue, also stated that they did not recall the CIR, any discussions about putting it on hold or why it was not sent. Data point number 5, Khalid al-Mihdhar in Dubai. On the same day that Dwight was drafting the CIR, the CIA reported in an internal cable additional information about Mihdhar. The cable stated that it appeared that despite his multiple entry visa, Mihdhar had not yet traveled to the United States. The cable then stated that it was up to the Counterterrorism Center as to whether anyone should inquire with the Immigration and Naturalization Services, or the INS, to verify whether Mihdhar had traveled to the United States. The cable also reported additional information about Mihdhar while he was in Dubai. CIA records reveal that this cable also was read by FBI detailee Dwight. However, Dwight did not include in the draft CIR the additional information about the lack of any indication that Mihdhar had traveled to the United States or the additional information about Mihdhar in Dubai. Data point number 6. CIA cable stating that Khalid al-Mihdhar's visa and passport information had been passed to FBI. Also, on the same day that Dwight was preparing the CIR, Michelle, the bin Laden unit desk officer who was following the issue of Mihdhar, prepared a lengthy cable to several stations summarizing the information that had been collected at that point on Mihdhar and 3 other individuals who were also possibly traveling to Malaysia. The cable began, quote, after following the various reports, some much more credible than others, regarding a possible bin Laden associated threat against U.S. interests in East Asia, we wish to note that there indeed appears to be a disturbing trend of bin Laden associates traveling to Malaysia, perhaps not for benign reasons, end quote. This cable then summarized the CIA's information that indicated several individuals were planning to travel to Malaysia. In the paragraph describing Mihdhar, Michelle stated that Mihdhar's travel documents, including a multiple entry U.S. visa, have been copied and passed to the FBI for further investigation. This cable, the 5th CIA cable to discuss Mihdhar's U.S. visa, did not state by whom or to whom Mihdhar's travel documents were passed. It also did not indicate how they had been passed or provide any other reference to the passage of the documents. Because this cable was an internal operational cable, it was not forwarded to or copied to the FBI. This cable was disseminated to various CIA stations approximately 3 hours after Michelle had noted in the cable system that Dwight was directed to hold off on sending his draft CIR to the FBI per the CIA station chief of the bin Laden unit. When we interviewed Michelle, she stated that she had no recollection of who told her that Mihdhar's travel documents had been passed to the FBI or how they had been passed. She said she would not have been the person responsible for passing the documents. According to Michelle, the language in the cable stating the documents have been passed suggested to her that someone else told her that they had already been passed but she did not know who it was. However, I do know who it was, and it was Alfreda M. Pikowski, in which she gave closed-door testimony to the 9/11 Commission report and stated that she personally walked over that information to FBI headquarters. However, there is no record of her entering the building at all. The CIA deputy chief of the Bin Laden unit also said he had no recollection of this cable and he did not know whether the information had been passed to the FBI. Neither we nor the CIA OIG was able to locate any other witness who said they remembered anything about Mihdhar's travel documents being passed to the FBI, or any other documents that corroborated the statement that the documents were in fact passed to the FBI. Data point number 7, the Malaysia meetings and surveillance of Khalid al-Mihdhar. After he arrived in Malaysia, Mihdhar was followed and photographed in various locations, meetings, and with several other different people. These events are referred to as the Malaysia meetings. CIA employees wrote several cables contemporaneously about the Malaysia meetings, which we have discussed below. The CIA prepared an internal cable stating that Khalid al-Mihdhar had arrived in Kuala Lumpur on the evening of January 5th of 2000. The cable also described his activities with other Arabs who were unidentified at this time. This cable, which we referred to as the first Malaysia meetings cable, did not contain any information regarding passports or visas. It appears that the first Malaysia meetings cable was provided to the FBI sometime before the daily FBI executive briefing that took place on January 6th at 7:30 a.m. The January 5th threat report information concerning Khalid al-Mihdhar was edited in the FBI's SIOC. This January 5th threat update reflected an almost verbatim recitation of portions of the CIA's first Malaysia meetings cable, including the same spelling mistake in reference to a particular place in Malaysia, which indicates that the CIA provided a copy of the first Malaysia cable to the FBI. However, we were not able to determine who in the FBI received this information from the FBI, from the CIA, or who edited the January 5th threat update. No one we interviewed at the FBI said they recalled handling information related to Khalid al-Mihdhar or the January 5th threat update. The threat update contained no reference to Mihdhar's passport information or his U.S. multi-entry visitor's visa. The January 5th threat report also was made part of the January 6th 7:30 a.m. executive briefing document. This briefing did not contain any additional information about Mihdhar. The January 5th threat update was the only official document from this period located by the FBI that referenced the Malaysia meetings that were discussed in the first CIA Malaysia meetings cable. As noted before, computer records show that James, the CTC employee detailed to the FBI's SIOC, read the cables and the draft CIR indicating that Mihdhar had a U.S. visa. Contemporaneous emails show that James discussed the Malaysia meetings with 2 FBI headquarters employees at the SIOC in the early morning hours of January 6th. Below, we detailed the cables and the evidence about the discussions that took place between the CIA and FBI personnel in the SIOC about the Malaysia meetings. Contemporaneous email messages among CIA employees showed that during the night of January 5th, James briefed the FBI special agent in charge, who we call Bob, about Mihdhar's travel. At the same time, Bob was a special agent in the UBL unit in FBI headquarters. Bob is Steve Bongard, which was operating out of the SIOC during this time period. James wrote an email to several CIA employees in which he stated that he was detailing exactly what he briefed the FBI on in the event the FBI later complained that they were not provided with all the information about Mihdhar. This email did not discuss Mihdhar's passport or U.S. visa. As previously mentioned, James told the CIA OIG that he had no recollection of these events and he declined to be interviewed by us. Bob told the OIG that he had no independent recollection of any briefing from a CIA employee regarding the Malaysia meetings. However, he was able to locate a scant contemporaneous note that confirmed that he had been briefed regarding Mihdhar and his trip to Malaysia. This note contained no details as to the content of the briefing and no reference to Mihdhar's U.S. visa. Bob told the OIG that he does not believe that he had been told in this conversation about Mihdhar's U.S. visa. Bob stated to us that the presence of the U.S. visa in Mihdhar's passport would have been extremely important and would have triggered a more significant response than his minimal notes. Bob also told the OIG that he did not know he did not know why James chose to brief him about Mihdhar. Bob said that he was not a designated point of contact for the CIA while the SIOC was activated, although he also said that he did not know whether there was a designated point of contact in the SIOC at all. Bob said that he knew James because James had previously been detailed from the CTC to FBI headquarters and had worked in ITOS with Bob. The day after the CIA employee discussed the Malaysia meetings with the two FBI SIOC employees, the CIA sent another internal cable providing new information about the activities of Khalid al-Mihdhar. This cable, the second Malaysia meetings cable, provided information about Mihdhar's activities once he left the Kuala Lumpur airport and his meetings with various individuals. Shortly after 7:30 a.m. on January 6th, James briefed another FBI special agent in charge who we called Ted, who was detailed to the SIOC from an FBI field office about information contained in the second Malaysia meetings cable. Ted told the OIG that he was working in the SIOC as an assistant to the day shift commander and the UBL unit chief, but that he had no specific duties. Because Bob had left FBI headquarters on a trip to New York by this time, James briefed Ted to ensure that someone at FBI headquarters had the latest information on Mihdhar. In the same email in which he detailed what he told Bob, James provided specifics of what he told Ted. The email also stated that the CIA would continue to run this and keep the FBI in the loop. This email did not contain any reference to Mihdhar's passport or U.S. visa. Based on this briefing by James, Ted prepared an update for the January 6th afternoon FBI executive briefing. Ted emailed the update to the ITOS Assistant Section Chief at 8:40 a.m. This update reflected the details of the information Ted had received from James. It did not contain any reference to Mihdhar's passport or U.S. visa. Like Bob, Ted told the OIG that he had no recollection of being briefed regarding the Malaysia meetings. Although he said he did not recall these events, Ted asserted he did not believe that he had received Mihdhar's passport or U.S. visa information because if he had, he would have unquestionably recognized their significance and documented such information in the update for the executive briefing. Ted told the OIG that he did not know why James briefed him about the Mihdhar information. Like Bob, Ted stated that he was not a designated point of contact for the CIA while the SIOC was activated. Ted also knew James because of James' previous detail to ITOS in FBI headquarters, where Ted served as a special agent in charge in the radical fundamentalist unit. On January 8th, the CIA reported in another internal cable that a new individual had joined Mihdhar and the others, and that additional surveillance photos were taken. The cable did not state how many photographs were taken or what would be done with the photos. In another cable, sent 5 hours later, the CIA reported in an internal cable that Khalid al-Mihdhar and two of the unidentified men, one who turned out to be Nawaf al-Hazmi, and the other, Walid bin Atash, codenamed Khalid, departed Malaysia from Kuala Lumpur airport en route to Bangkok, Thailand. On January 9th, the CIA's bin Laden unit prepared a cable asking that Mihdhar and his associates be identified while in Thailand. CIA records show that on January 13th, the CIA was attempting to locate Mihdhar and his traveling companions. In addition, Mihdhar had been watch listed at the airport in the event that he attempted to leave Thailand. Several weeks later, CIA officers in Kuala Lumpur followed up with their Bangkok counterparts for additional information about Mihdhar and his traveling companions. Approximately 2 weeks later, Bangkok reported that there was a delay in responding due to difficulties in obtaining the requested information. In early March of 2000, officials in Bangkok reported internally that he had identified one of Mihdhar's traveling companions as Nawaf al-Hazmi. The cable reported that al-Hazmi had traveled to Bangkok on January 8th and had subsequently traveled on a United Airlines flight to Los Angeles, California on January 15th. The cable also stated that Mihdhar had arrived in Bangkok on January 8th, but that it was unknown if and when he had departed. In addition, the cable identified the third traveler as Salah Saeed Mohammed bin Yusuf, a fake name for Walid bin Attash. CIA records showed that none of the FBI detailees accessed this early March cable. The OIG found no documents or witnesses indicating that the information that Hazmi had traveled to Los Angeles on January 13th of 2000 was shared with the FBI at this time. Rather, as we discussed below, the fact was not shared with the FBI until August 2001. We found no indication that CTC personnel took any action with regard to the important information that Hazmi had traveled to the United States. For example, he was not placed on any U.S. watch lists. The day after Bangkok reported about Hazmi's travel to Los Angeles, one office that received the Bangkok cable sent a cable to the CTC stating that Bangkok cable regarding Hazmi's travel had been read with interest. Yet, despite this effort to flag the significance of this information, the cable was not shared with the FBI and did not result in any specific action by the CIA. As we discussed below, it was not until August 2001 that FBI headquarters personnel learned that on January 15, 2000, both Mihdhar and Hazmi had left Thailand and traveled to Los Angeles, California, where they were both admitted into the United States on non-immigrant visas and authorized to remain until July 14th of 2000. Data point number 8. Office of Inspector General findings regarding FBI's knowledge about Khalid al-Mihdhar in the Malaysia meetings. We discuss here our findings regarding the FBI's knowledge of information about Mihdhar and the January 2000 Malaysia meetings, including whether the intelligence information concerning Mihdhar's valid multiple U.S. visas and Hazmi's travel to the United States in January 2000 was passed to the FBI. Several witnesses told the OIG that Mihdhar's possession of a U.S. visa provided a clear domestic nexus that should have triggered the passing of this information from the CIA to the FBI. At the outset, we note that the CIA has acknowledged that it obtained information that Mihdhar had a U.S. visa and that Hazmi had traveled to the United States, and that the CIA should have placed their names on a U.S. watch list, but this did not occur. The CIA OIG is reviewing this matter to determine why this failure occurred and who is responsible for it. As noted above, the formal method of communicating intelligence information between the CIA and the FBI was an intelligence report called a CIR. CIA records showed that between July 1999 and September 10, 2001, the Bin Laden unit disseminated over 1,000 CIRs, most of which went to the FBI. CTC employees, as well as FBI detailees to the Bin Laden unit, had authority to draft CIRs, and the detailees collectively drafted over 150 CIRs to the FBI during this period. However, CIRs could only be disseminated by persons with authority to release the CIRs. In the Bin Laden unit, Only supervisors, including John and Eric, as the deputy chiefs of the station, had authority to release CIRs. Dwight drafted a CIR in which he summarized the information that had been disseminated by the NSA about Mihdhar. He also provided detailed information about Mihdhar's passport, visa, and visa application, indicating that New York had been his intended destination. According to CIA records, this CIR never was disseminated by the FBI to the FBI. A desk officer's note on the draft CIR indicated that the deputy chief of the bin Laden unit, John, had instructed the draft CIR to be put on hold, and Dwight contacted him through an email about the disposition of the CIR a week later. Despite this email, the evidence clearly shows that the CIR never was disseminated to the FBI. The evidence shows, however, that Dwight acted in accordance with the system that was in place at the time by drafting the CIR to formally pass the information to the FBI. In accordance with bin Laden unit policy, Dwight was not permitted to pass the CIR to the FBI without permission. All of the witnesses stated, however, that they did not recall the CIR or any communications about it. Other than the note written by the desk officer, we found no documentary evidence about why the CIR was not disseminated. Thus, we were unable to determine why it was not sent. The information in the CIR, which was documented in the appropriate format for passage to the FBI, was potentially significant to the FBI and should have been passed to the FBI. We believe it was a significant failure for the CIR not to be sent to the FBI. We also considered what information that James, a CIA detailee to the FBI, informally passed to FBI headquarters, and whether he informed anyone of the visa information about Mihdhar. Based on the contemporaneous emails in which James documented in detail what he told FBI Special Agent in Charge Bob and Ted, we concluded that he reported to the FBI the information regarding Mihdhar's transit through Dubai, his arrival in Kuala Lumpur, his activities after his arrival, and his meeting with other suspected al-Qaeda operatives. It is far less clear, however, whether he provided Mihdhar's passport and U.S. visa information to the FBI. We do not believe that James briefed either Bob or Ted on Mihdhar's passport or U.S. visa information. First, nothing in Bob's contemporaneous notes on Ted's email or briefing update referred to Mihdhar's passport or visa information. Bob and Ted also stated forcefully and credibly to us that they would have recognized the significance of a U.S. visa in the hands of a suspected al-Qaeda operative, and at a minimum would have included such information in their notes or their reports. Moreover, James wrote a detailed email to document the contents of his conversations with Bob and Ted. Since the stated purpose of James' email was to prevent the FBI from later claiming he had failed to brief them on some important details, he had every incentive to include all relevant details in that email, in which he did not. At the time he wrote this email, he had read 3 of the CIA cables indicating that Mihdhar had a U.S. visa, as well as the draft CIR. Yet James' email contained no mention of Mihdhar's passport or visa. We found only one piece of evidence suggesting that the FBI was made aware in January 2000 of Mihdhar's U.S. visa. The early January cable by the desk officer, who we call Michelle, which stated that Mihdhar's travel documents, including a multiple entry U.S. visa, have been copied and passed to the FBI for further investigation. We could not, however, find any evidence corroborate that this information had actually been passed to the FBI. This cable did not state by whom or to whom the documents were passed or make any other reference to the passage of the documents. The cable was an internal cable, which means it would not have been forwarded to or accessible to the FBI. In addition, Michelle, the CIA desk officer who wrote the cable, had no recollection of who told her that the documents had been passed or how they had been passed. She said that she would not have been responsible for passing the information, but instead would have been told that someone else had passed on the documents. We were unable to locate any witness who said they remembered anything about the documents being passed to the FBI, as Michelle's cable asserted. Even if the cable was accurate and she had been told by someone that the documents had been passed to the FBI, there is still no evidence that such information was correct. The CIA and FBI witnesses we interviewed described this period as very hectic and said they were flooded with information. Several witnesses suggested that these hectic circumstances could have created an environment where unintentional misunderstandings might have occurred about whether information was actually passed to other intelligence community agencies. We also searched ACS for any FBI record of the travel documents having been provided to the FBI, since this cable indicated that a physical copy of the documents, not merely information about the documents, was passed. We found no reference to the documents. Aside from this cable, we found no other evidence that the information or documents about Mihdhar's passport or visa information was in fact provided to the FBI during this time period. As discussed above, 5 FBI employees were detailed to the CTC to work on bin Laden matters during 2000 and 2001, and all had access at their desks to CIA internal cable traffic. 4 of those employees, the supervisor, who we call Eric, the IOS, who we call Mary, and the agents, who we call Dwight and Malcolm, were at the bin Laden unit in January 2000 when the Malaysia meetings occurred. We considered how each handled the intelligence information concerning Mihdhar during this period. After reading 2 of the cables indicating that Mihdhar had a U.S. visa, Dwight prepared a draft CI to officially notify the FBI about this information, since the U.S. visa prevented a nexus between Mihdhar and the United States. But the CI was not provided to the FBI. However, we also examined whether any of the detailees took any other action to notify FBI headquarters, or in Malcolm's case, the New York field office, about the information concerning Mihdhar. The evidence shows that each FBI detailee reviewed some of the cables about Mihdhar's U.S. visa. Dwight accessed several of the cables that indicated Mihdhar had a U.S. visa, such as the cable stating that Mihdhar had transited through Dubai and had a U.S. visa, the cable stating that Mihdhar's visa application listed New York as his intended destination in May of 1999, and the cable stating that based on a review of Mihdhar's visa, it did not appear that he actually traveled to the United States. Malcolm also accessed the cable stating that Mihdhar's visa application listed New York as his intended destination in May of 1999, and that the cable stating that it did not appear that Mihdhar had actually traveled to the United States. Malcolm also accessed the 2 cables stating that Mihdhar had arrived in Kuala Lumpur and that surveillance photos showed him the meeting with others in Malaysia. Malcolm also accessed Dwight's draft CIR indicating passage of the visa information to the FBI, including the New York field office. In sum, the evidence shows that in January and March of 2000, the CIA uncovered important intelligence information about Mihdhar and Hazmi. 1, they were al-Qaeda operatives who had traveled to Malaysia, where they were photographed meetings with other suspected al-Qaeda operatives. 2, they traveled to Bangkok with a 3rd person. 3, Mihdhar had a valid multiple U.S. visa. 4, Nawaf al-Hazmi had traveled to Los Angeles in January 2000. Yet, we found that the CIA did not share significant pieces of information with the FBI, that Mihdhar had a U.S. visa, and that Hazmi had traveled to Los Angeles. An FBI detailee at the CIA drafted the CIR to share this information with the FBI, but that information was not released by the CIA to the FBI. We were unable to determine why this did not occur. No one we interviewed said they remembered the CIR or why it was not sent to the FBI. We consider it as a significant failure for the CIR not to be sent to the FBI. In addition, the evidence shows that the limited information that was provided to FBI headquarters that Mihdhar traveled to Malaysia and met with other suspected Al Qaeda operatives was never documented by the FBI in any system that was retrievable or searchable, thus limiting the usefulness of the information that was shared. The FBI's only official record of having received this information was in the hard copies of the January 5th threat update, which was attached to the January 6th executive briefing and Ted's email summarizing information from his discussion with the CIA employee. We discussed this and other systematic problems in our additional analysis in the sections below. And that is all regarding Chapter 5, Part 3, regarding the Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi report pre-9/11 and their entry into the United States. And as we can learn from this Office of Inspector General report by the FBI, the CIA Counterterrorism Center had pertinent information which was not shared to the FBI, and that certain personnel even lied about it. The question is, why did they lie in the first place?